Hello, I'm James Stratton with OTG Realty Advisors, and I am excited to announce our new optimized portfolio, Project Kim Oak, whose asking price is $10,850,000. Let's go to the vault and see what we can learn about Project Kim Oak. Okay, so let's take a look at Project Kim Oak, and let's just see what makes Kim Oak such a special portfolio. First, uh, Project Kim Oak was chosen out of a sample size of 865 properties whose total asking price was $1.47 billion out of the state of Texas. If you look down at our map, we can get that up there where you can actually see where all the locations were in the state of Texas. All right. Now, this is a portfolio of three properties whose total asking price is $10,895,000. Now, those three properties were chosen out of that 865 property sample size. So, a big shout out to the brokers who listed these properties because they did such a good job that our software was able to pick it up out of that sample size. So, fantastic job, brokers. All right, here we go. So this particular slide answers a fundamental question that investors often have. And they say, well, you know what? I'm not made out of money, but I do have maybe $11 million I'd like to invest next year on some income producing properties. And I'd like to get as much as I can for that money with the highest expected rate of return and the least amount of risk or volatility. And that's exactly what this particular portfolio does for us. All right. So on our next slide, we're going to take a look at the predicted cash flows from this particular portfolio. All right. So on our top slide right here, first of all, on the top three slides up here, we talk about the internal rate of return or the predicted internal rate of return of all the cash flows from these properties. Now, during the course of this analysis, you're going to hear me talk about terms such as IRR, NPV, NOI, Markowitz curves. If you're unfamiliar with these terms or you're a little rusty on it, take a look down in the description and you'll see some links to some videos that will give you some quick tutorials and get you up to speed. Plus, you can look at some other disclosures that are sitting down there as well. All right, so here we go. So let's take a look at the first big chart, which is our cash flow chart, and it gives us our cash flow pattern for this particular project, okay, or this portfolio. And it's not unlike any other that you see out there that's got the predictable price pattern, okay, or our cash flow pattern. In this particular case, we look and we see that we spent a little over $1 million, $1.7 million on property number one, and in the year 2021 or this year, and 6.5 million in some change or less than some change on property number two, and 2.7 million in property number three. Now, it's going to give us our projected cash flows each year during the holding period until we get to the year 2029 where we predict we want to sell it at, right? So here it's predicting that in 2029, the cash flows that we're going to get from the sale of this property, or referred to as our reversion year, is 7.9 million and some change, and that also includes the net operating income for that year. All right, now let's take a look at that second chart down below, because what happens if we don't want to sell it in 2029? We'd like to maybe sell it in 2026. Well, we can do that. But first, let's take a look at that second chart that talks about the price. Now, this is the predicted price pattern over the coming years for each one of those properties. Price number one goes to property number one and two and three, right? And one of the things you're going to notice is some of these properties are running pretty close together. So it looks like the property number one and two are correlating together a little bit. And we're going to see what the outcome of that is on our next slide when we talk about our equity plan. All right. But let's just take a look and say, let's say, for example, we want to sell the property in 2026. What would that look like? So if we hover over this, we can see what the projected future price is, or future asking price is for this particular property. And so property number one would be selling, or asking price would be 8 million and some change. Property number two, almost 8 million. And property number three is almost 3.5 million. All right. But if we want to drill into it and see what our cash flows would look like too, we can do that as well. And so our next, if we drill into it, it tells us what our cash flows would be. So property number one would be 665,000 a year, approximately. $590,000 and some change on property number two, and property number three is $540,000 and some change. So you would add those two together in order to get us what our reversion year or our selling year cash flows would look like. Now, at any time, if you want to export this, you can. You come up here and export it to your favorite spreadsheet. All right. Now let's go to our all-important equity plan. And this plan actually says, okay, if I want to buy a portfolio, where do I put my money at? Okay. So let's take a look at that real quick. All right, first thing you're going to notice is three gauges sitting over here in this equity plan. And so I get this question a lot. So if I have three properties, do I put 33 and a third of my dollars into each property? Well, one of them wouldn't get that anyway because you can't get that even. The answer would be more than likely not. Okay, so what do we do about that? Well, we're going to use something over here called a Markowitz curve. And in this particular case, we're going to use it in a different way. And this is going to help us determine where do we put our money at? How much of our money do we put in each one of these particular properties? And in this particular case, I'm going to choose that particular point that I got my pointer on here, which is at approximately 4.23%, where we have a 9% risk or volatility. Okay, so if I press on that, it's going to give me an equity plan. And what this thing is saying, and this particular chart is saying, is that all of my money should go into property number two and three. Absolutely none of it should go into property number one. So this is a great example of a plan that will require a loan in which to make it come about, right? So in order to get this portfolio bought, you will need a loan. What you would do is put 100% of your loan proceeds into property number one, and 52% of your loan proceeds in number two, and 48% of your loan proceeds into property number three. The remainder would obviously be your equity. And if you did that, then your expected cash flows over the holding period would be $14.26 million. All right. And of course, we can do this for several different points. If we go lower than that, we should expect the net present value to rise. And we're going to see a change in the pattern over here of our equity plan. If we go up here, for example, it's going to go really crazy on us because it's way outside the plan. And it's going to say we put nothing into this. This would be a bad plan. Okay, so we don't do that one. All right. Now let's go back down to here real quick so we can get this back. Okay, so let's go to our next slide and let's look at the leading particulars of this particular property or this portfolio. Okay, so let's give a quick disclosure here. First of all, James Stratton and OTG Realty Advisors do not own these properties, and we do not have the exclusive right to sell. OTG Realty Advisors is an exclusive investor and buyer's brokers agency. And as a result of that, we cannot give the addresses away of these properties unless we have some type of limited representation with you. That would be unethical, and we leave that up to the seller's broker or the owners if they want to do that. But what we can do is break down the information we are given in our analysis without giving the addresses. And one of the things you're going to realize real quick is that these dots right here represent where the properties are actually at. Of course, we can look up here and see that they're the city of Laredo, Vernon, and Ty. Out of that, we can get our leading particulars, like how many square feet's in the building. This information is supplied by the brokers. What their asking prices are, what type of buildings they are, and whether or not they're in a opportunity zone or not. And then, of course, we can look what the reported next year's net operating income is going to be by the broker, and the cap rates of the buildings. All right, and so it gives us quite a bit of information. And one of the things we can pull out of this, especially when it comes to modern portfolio theory, is that we have a variety of property types. This diversification of property types protects us from unnecessary risk, and the same thing as the locations. The locations themselves protect us from unnecessary risk. Now, I hope you got a lot out of this analysis. If you did, please hit the like button. Leave us a comment down below, and also make sure you hit the subscribe button and bell notification so as more of these analyses come out, you can get them. All right, have a great day.